This is my 2003 Jeep TJ, and it's got a really big problem. My oil pan is so rusty that chunks of metal are falling off of it, and oil is seeping through the pan, leaving it everywhere. Every time I drive it, I'm worried that a rock is gonna skip up from the road, hitting that chunk and blowing a hole in the bottom of my motor, leaving me stranded. And I have to get this thing fixed in the next 2 days because it's my only way to work. Every other vehicle I own is either broken or not insured for me to drive daily. I think I'm gonna be pretty tight on my deadline because the most work I've ever done on this thing is changing the oil. This is a big jump from anything I've ever done before.
The first step to replacing my oil pan is to drain all the oil out of the engine.
Draining your oil is actually pretty simple. All you gotta do is take out the drain plug right here, and that's about it. The hardest part is not making a mess. Apparently the hardest part is remembering which way is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Or having the strength to open it. Holy crap. It's always that first little bit.
Now the oil's out, but the exhaust pipes are still in the way. But they shouldn't be too hard to move because it's only held in by a handful of bolts. I sprayed everything with penetrating fluid to help make it as easy as possible to break loose and began by taking off the O2 sensors.
This is what I was worried about. This is what's gonna make the job super long. Oh, there we go. That thing is ugly. There's a second O2 sensor I gotta take out here. Much more awkward spot, and it seems to be much more rusted. Trying to like pin myself against the car to get as much leverage as possible. This thing is really on there, holy shit. Oh my God.
I gave it everything I have, but this thing did not want to move. So I had to bring out the big guns.
Well, this is what I was most worried about. It was the rust stopping me from making any progress, and here it is. Basically the first thing I'm trying to do, and the rust is fucking me over. I've maxed out my air wrench, which is about 600 foot-pounds of torque, and all it's doing is throwing rust into my eyes. So all I really can do right now with the tools that I have is wait. I'm gonna soak it in penetrating fluid, hope that it seeps a little deeper, come back in maybe 20, 30 minutes, give it another go. If I can't get that, I really don't know what to do because there's not much space for me to get like a big pipe on there and get more leverage. So we just gotta hope that the penetrating fluid is gonna do its job. Been 30 minutes. Let's give her another go. Okay, I've been knocking at it for another like 20 minutes trying to get it loose. I cleaned it off. It looks like it's basically welded on there. It's just so rusted. So I thought I was just stuck. But then I realized the wiring from the O2 sensor goes up to a clip and you can just detach the clip. I'll just undo the clip and it'll be hanging off of it. Now, how do I get the pipes off?
The pipe flanges were in a much more awkward spot, but it wasn't anything 3 extenders couldn't fix.
Ah, already. Ugh. Big chunk.
The pipes are disconnected from the engine, so I thought it would be super easy to take out, but there's a support near the cat that's stopping me from rotating it. Because the pipe is one solid piece, it's super awkward to move around, so I tried separating it at this flange.
So it turns out, after investigating a little more and watching a couple videos online, it seems that the flange, when they originally installed it in the factory, they threaded the nut onto it and then welded the nut onto the flange. So no matter how hard I use this impact wrench, it's not gonna come off because it's freaking welded on. So it's basically permanently one big piece of exhaust unless I cut it up into pieces. That just blows my mind. So I've been staring at this, trying to figure out how I could possibly get the oil pan off without chopping my exhaust up into multiple pieces. And I think I may have come up with an idea.
Right now, this support is stopping me from being able to move my exhaust out of the way. If I can find a way to get the support out of that hole, then I'm good to go. Right now I have a little bit of wiggle room to slide it back and forth. So I'm thinking if I slide it all the way out, cut the support, I'll be able to move it out of the way to remove the oil pan, but still have enough support to slide it back into its original position.
So that's my idea right now. I don't have a tool to cut it at the moment, so it's gonna be tomorrow's job, which means my timeline is getting real tight. I have made absolutely zero progress because the first step was removing the exhaust, and I haven't been able to do it. I started working at like 11, and it's 5 o'clock now. There we go. We got our sliced off, nice and loose. I guess since we're here, I should double check that it's gonna fit back in, but it's not like it's gonna matter anymore because, you know, it's already chopped. But let's check anyways. Look at that. See? Genius. Let's go. All right. Let's get this thing out of the way and then we can actually start making some progress on the oil pan.
Taking off the pan is pretty simple. All I gotta do is take off the rusty bolts, and luckily they were nowhere near as bad as the exhaust, so they came out real easy. With the bolts off, I wiggled the pan off the engine and around the exhaust pipes.
I'm just eating rust. Guys, we got it off. Holy crap.
Now that the pan is off, it's time for a pan inspection. Looking at the inside, there isn't anything obviously wrong other than the worrying amount of sludge and metal at the bottom of the pan. Now, when I had to look at the old gasket, I found where my problem was.
Okay, I was just very lightly pulling off the gasket that was still attached to the bottom end of the engine. And it is completely mangled. I don't even know how this happens. Maybe they just over-torqued this and split the gasket, but this is definitely why all the oil has been kicking out everywhere.
Now, before we get back to the car, I want to test my theory that the rusty pan could have been punctured by a rock.
You know, if you're going 80 and something hits this, it's gonna hit pretty hard. That wasn't very hard, guys. There's a hole straight through it. Now, I don't think a rock could have ever done that, but this thing had to be replaced. There's no fixing that. Holy crap. Even this part is still pretty rusty, but it's not breaking through. But it just shows how bad this is.
If you have a look at the face of my transmission, you can see that it's also covered in old oil. Now, most of it probably came from the broken gasket, but on these Jeeps, it's also really common for the rear main seal to leak. If you don't know, the rear main seal is what keeps your engine oil from leaking out of the back of the motor where the crankshaft goes into the transmission. On most cars, you actually have to drop the entire transmission just to replace it, but luckily on this Jeep it's much easier. All you have to do is pull the bearing brace, remove the bearing cap, carefully tap out the top half of the seal without scratching the crank because that guarantees another oil leak, slide in the new gasket without tearing it on the sharp edges of the engine, then put some anaerobic sealant on the face of the bearing cap and put everything back together. Pretty simple, right? With the rear main seal replaced, I should have no more leaks once I get this oil pan back on. Everything should be pretty straightforward to finish this off. All I have to do is attach the gasket to the pan and bolt it back onto the engine.
That took so long, I ran out of storage on my camera. It has been like an hour just trying to get these bolts on. It's finally done. I'm gonna do a final tighten down, and then all I have to do is strap up the exhaust, fill it with oil, and then see if I did a good job, I guess. Okay, here's the moment of truth. Let's turn it on and see what happens. I got stable oil pressure at the moment. My exhaust is smoking because of all the oil that dripped onto it. That's all right. I don't have a fire extinguisher though, so let's just hope that just doesn't catch on fire. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off. That's a lot of smoke. She's really
really smoky.
Well, I think we're good, at least for now, for the oil. Nothing's leaking. We'll know for sure once I take it for a real drive. Look at that. Holy crap.
I gave the Jeep a quick rinse to make sure it didn't catch on fire when I was driving to work the next day. At lunch, I checked the pan to see if the leaking had stopped, and it was bone dry. I think I can confidently say that I fixed my problem and saved myself a lot of money compared to taking it to a mechanic shop.
Subscribe.